class. But now I don't know if you know, but this weekend, Krista Tippett reposted the interview that I did with them. And they actually put in a new intro and a new kind of exit. And I think they cut a different interview. When we did it originally, it was an hour and a half, she and I talked, and they made it into like 55 minutes. And I feel like and I can't confirm this, but when I listened to it, I feel like they made it slightly more about yoga this time and about trauma. And so it's good. And so I think some people might have come from that, but I'm not sure. So Bethany, do you have, I think Molly, put it on our website, but why don't
you? Yep, I can snag that link.
Yeah, and then also, if you can find the newsletter, Krista wrote an amazing intro to that in her newsletter, which was actually quite humbling. But it's nice, that is and still remains if you don't know what we're talking about, it's On Being with Krista Tippett. And it was back in 2006, and it remains the single best interview I've ever done. And it's because she's the best interviewer I've ever been with, by far. Like, it's not even in the same universe. And when it comes to being interviewed, so and she continues to. I'm glad she's as affected by the interview as I am, because it changed my life, like, while it was happening. All right, so take an exhale. Let drop, right? Because there's a natural rise that happens here, right? So when your mind finally stops or ceases at least some of its struggle, doesn't mean you have to fall into a more depressive state or like, oh, I give up. It means that the paradox of a lot of our particular practice together, but of yoga in general, is that by quieting down, more of you gets revealed. That by quieting down, and you don't want to do it all the time, because you got to be active in most of your life, right? By quieting down, you experience more of you. The realization of self is a different experience than self-knowledge. So, like, I don't say everyone should know themselves better. That's great. But that's only one of the branches of self-realization, right? And I kind of tend to think it's kind of a superficial one, depending on how deep your knowledge goes. But that in fact, that there's a whole bunch of what you are that's less tangible, right? But it can be included even in action, right? So in order to include more of you, paradoxically, it means calming your mind down, at least during parts of your day. Not all the time, right? That the access that the brain, if you talk about this in neurophysiological terms, the brain has way more input coming to you. And right, I often joke that in order to have a mind, it's a great narrowing in order for us to have a mind and an ego, right? It's a huge narrowing of sensation, right? So So it's like one of the reasons why centering is so important. But pratyahara is one of the limbs, the ability to withdraw from your senses. It's not just to meditate. It's so the brain gets into a different relationship to experience. And it doesn't do as much narrowing down before it comes to your mind. Right? So there's a whole bunch of self that's not tangible. So as you sit and you allow the drop, what you might find, and I think is true, and I don't think yoga teachers are lying to you, not even me, right, is that there's a natural rise here. That there's not only the drop and the return to the earth, but there's a different energy that starts to happen, especially up through the spine. So as you sit here and soften your jaw on the inside of your mouth, and you pay a little bit more attention to your exhale, don't let your mind lead you. In order to realize the potential, especially of asana, you need to shift or invert that so much of your experience goes from body to mind or is waiting for you from body to mind. And I don't just mean pain and whatever, but the unreal, the intangible parts of self are not going to be realized by a mind, especially an overactive mind. Self-realization is not the same as acquiring knowledge. So as you soften your jaw and the skin on your face, right? And you start to allow here, don't just think we're talking about surrender or acceptance. We're actually trying to activate all of the nervous system. Might even call that the parasympathetic nervous system. So you're just noticing your breath. But the goal isn't simply to calm down. The aim is to receive. The task isn't just to quiet your mind. It's to reveal. And then to follow. So notice how great it is that in the midst of the drop that's here, soften the jaw, the inside of the mouth, around the temples and stuff, there's also your breath continually expanding and bringing life back in. And then it's washing back out. It's going back and forth. And what, isn't it great? You don't have to think about it. That you're going to be able to breathe without thinking. Thank God. Again, the folly of thinking that your mind is in charge is extraordinary folly. The quiet place is included in action. The quiet energy is part of movement. It brings grace. It's resilient. It's transcendent. And you're not going to get there from your mind. That is, your mind is not the bridge to that potential. And basically, the yogis are telling you it's your spine. That's oversimplifying, but at least asana practitioners are going to tell you, right? Except the mind is kind of afraid of the quiet, wants to make it into an object, isn't comfortable with the envelopment that comes with existence. Mind has a hard time staying steady. So you're watching your breath. You're feeling your body. Your body's already solved the problem that the mind struggles with. Stay patient. Repose. In other words, reboot your mind. This part of you is actually not lost. It's been neglected. Keep breathing. But your body will keep you breathing. So where does asana begin? Start hitting down with your sitting bones. Lifting up with your chest. Broadening across your collarbone. Broaden the space between your shoulder blades. And then collapse again. Get to choose your relationship to gravity. It's not about good posture. It's about your relationship to gravity. Ground your sitting bones again. Connect to your feet. Hit down through your sitting bones. Broaden across your collarbones. Broaden across between the shoulder blades on the back body. Balance your head over your neck. Get bigger in the room. The empty space in the room is welcoming you. You don't have to push. Get bigger. If you're at Laura Hallisey's thing, quoting last Wednesday, Walt Whitman, you're large and you contain multitudes. She quoted a line from Walt Whitman and taught, as you sit tall and expand, don't fight for the space. Be with the space and remain active. Asana is simple. At its very core, the space waits for you. Good. And then release again and watch the collapse. Watch the weight come back through. Like watch it here, For those of you that know this summer and the summer before when I was reading the Over story, I had the book, which is stunning. Started to realize that my trees on my lap, they never not welcome me. They are so freaking giving that I can always sit with them and their door is open. Always. They will never say no for as long as they are. But then I started to realize so does the space inside my body. Right? So sit up straight and tall again. Start the expansion. You contain multitudes. You're large. You're not small. You're small too. Bring your hands into prayer if you can. Otherwise, put your hands equally on your lap. But try to find the midline. So a line down the center of your bridge of your nose, all the way through. So this line is each sitting bone's on each side of that. Each foot on the floor or on your wheelchair pedal is on each line of that, right? And you start to follow by lifting your chest and hanging down with your sitting bones, and then you expand in space. All the while, you keep the midline by having something in the center. So you just added clarity to your experience. Because Angar talks about here, he says, and close your eyes if you're comfortable with it. Keep the ears receptive. Last week we talked about, the week before, about the skin being a giant ear, but keep the ears and your skin receptive, but keep your eyes passive. Inhabit your body, be large, contain multitudes. You don't need to know the multitudes. They're already happening. Honor the experience by clarifying it. Man, your mind is dull. So is mine. My mind makes everything dull. Good. And then release. What? What's all this stuff? You contain multitudes. So we're going to start to move around because, damn it, movement's good. You know, we kind of do some version of this all the time. How do you make the space within you, the intangible aspects of self? So I'm just moving around, getting my muscles in my skin. Arm goes over the head, the intercostal muscles, you know, open, and remembering, how do you get more of yourself felt? Have you noticed it's hard to get your mind to feel stuff? You have to have a body, or you have to have some sort of sensation. Like if I just close my eyes and try to feel more, I have to use my body as the launching pad. So I'm just opening up my spine. I'm watching my spine. I'm going back over my chin. And then I'm changing its relationship to gravity, and I'm coming forward, and I'm going like, dang, my spine is snaking through this space. And as it does, the space around it kind of follows. The space in the room kind of follows my spine, and my spine can travel through the water of the empty space in the room. Remember, what we're trying to figure out is how to realize this space as graceful. Right? So I'm going up again, and I'm trying to get my body to feel the nourishment of the welcoming space, not just in my body, but around my body. It always welcomes you. It actually, I think the universe is calling you to be bigger and contain multitudes. Right? Lift up. I think that's, if you're really honest, that's what the universe is asking from us. It's not to dominate what's outside of us. It's not to have power. It's actually to invite participation, right? So I'm starting to add some rhythm here. Like, dang, that little like, you mean my spine can go up and down? Right? Right? So I'm doing this, and I don't know if someone was maybe going to join that doesn't have sight. So I'm not quite sure how to help with that. You need to help me help you if you're on the class, right? So it's like what we're doing is I'm pushing down on my wheelchair and we're lifting up a bit. So we're trying to elongate the spine a little bit, right? So we're just trying to get that feeling. And now when I go back over the back of my chair, I put my hands on my legs. I push my legs, my femur bones away as I lift my back up and over the back of my chair and slowly extend my head back, unless it makes you dizzy. And then I'm coming through and I'm leaning forward and coming all the way through. So we're just trying to exercise the spine, right? So right now we're just going back and forth, back up over the chair, back bending, right? But trying to stay safe while you do it, and then leaning forward, coming through, coming forward, right? Then at a certain place, I'm going to pivot. So I'm going to stop coming forward. I'm going to ground, hit down with my hands onto my legs onto the floor, and then I'm going to rise up my spine and come back, right? And then go up over my head, up over the back of my chair, right? So because, unfortunately, it's hard to stay patient with such, I'm doing it again, by the way, such small spaces. This next time I come up, I'm going to include my arm. I'm going to take my right arm up and go back and have it follow as if it was part of my spine, right? And have it go back over, right? And then come forward, right? And then I'm going to come forward again. And next time I'm going to come back and I'm going to lift my arm up over my left arm. And so my arms, and then some of you can do both arms at once. I'm going to try, but it's not nearly as good a yoga because my spine compresses. We're going to go back with both arms. Okay. Oh, that doesn't nearly as good on my spine, right? Good. Okay. Now this time I'm going to inhale, lift my right arm up. I'm going to lengthen here. I'm going to let all the space in here in my armpit and my shoulder girdle touch the space right around my body. And once I do that, I'm going to ground my sitting bones and feel my feet. I'm going to make this space be part of other space. And then I'm going to exhale and turn and twist. Right? I'm going to take the right hand outside the left leg. And then I'm going to take the other arm behind me. And I'm going to do this from a sense of space. Remember, what asana is trying to show you is this space isn't lost. It's just waiting for you to participate. Inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve. And your mind will not access it by itself. In order to feel this sense of space that your body's already realized and then come back to center, you're going to have to get your mind calm enough so you can feel it from your body to your mind. I don't know about you, but there have been times in my life and at parts of every day where I don't listen to my body. I don't actually let it have its voice. Inhale, take the other arm up. Again, I'm following all the things we just heard. And then I'm rotating and I'm going across and I'm taking the other arm behind and I'm thinking about not just squeezing my muscles to inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve, and twist. I'm actually trying to move with the space. So in order for me to twist the space in me, in connection to the space outside of me, I don't get to be so willful. I actually inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve. Lift under the collarbones, broaden the space between the shoulder blades, sit down to the sitting bones and down to the inner groin, to the inner knee, to the inner heel. Oh my God, can you get that all in one sentence? Yeah. Inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve. Good. And then release. One of the paradoxes of coming to an asana class is that in order to access what's trying to be revealed, and I'm coming forward again and I'm moving around, right? I'm rocking back and forth. In order to access this space, it sounds like I'm instructing your mind to do upon your body, right? And that seems like your mind is then having to be real active. It's like, well, that is, but if you practice long enough, then your mind doesn't have to be so active when you do these things. So you can actually start to feel what's happening with a different quality in your brain, right? Your brain starts to let in more information as you repeat poses and movements over and over again. So I'm leaning back and forth and coming forward and lifting up. So instead of like the repetition boring the mind, yes, I'd like my mind to get bored because I'd like it to shut the hell up, right? And I'm doing the same motion over and over again because I'm actually trying to feel more of it, right? But not like more with judgment. I'm trying to actually let the experience and the movement of gravity and coming forward and lifting up, I'm trying to have the experience itself be unjudged. So it travels from my brain into my mind unjudged. And my mind isn't in charge. And then come on back to center. So you're going to keep rocking forward and back again, right? You're trying to actually get the mind to be quiet, right? There's more happening than you know. What might be happening may be more profound than what you know. Prashant Iyengar, take your legs up, right? Remember, we're trying to bring alive, and I got my knees apart, and I'm taking the back of my hand, and I'm moving my legs apart, and I'm coming forward, right? Right? So I'm like rocking forward and back. I'm using rhythm here, right? Because I'm going to use everything at my disposal, right? Because I'm trying to wake up, trying to realize that the empty spaces in me hum and are graceful and resilient, right? I'm trying to actually become just today, just in this practice. So I'm going to lean over, push off, lift my chest. I teach this a lot, right? Here's the collapse. Here's the mind getting heavy. Here's my body going, shut up, right? Shut up and feel, right? Feel. What's unfortunate is we tend to access our dimension, especially in this culture. So I'm going back and forth. We access the dimension of self only psychologically. But to access that energy psychologically requires judgment. And judgment tends to be negative. Have you noticed? Have you noticed that negative judgments, and then bring your legs back to, have you noticed that negative judgments allow for more content? So have you ever noticed this damn paradox about being alive is when you have a beautiful experience, you tend to be speechless? Like you're in awe, right? But when something really pisses you off, you can go on for hours. Yeah, shit. You got to rewrite that script. And you'll find that for beautiful experiences, you don't need as many words. Right? It's wild that your mind finds words negatively better than positively. Who made legs wide again? Who made that freaking rule? Right? Who made that pattern? So I'm going to go over to the left and I take the right arm up. So I'm going a little bit closer to Trikonasana, but I know in Trikonasana, I better lock my brakes because I'm going to start going all around all this. I know in Trikonasana, one of the core things to happen is when you lean over to the left, you gotta go back and expand your spine. So I'm going to push on my right hip with my right hand. And I'm going to lift up and through my spine. But what's hard about that is when I lift up and through, I just collapse back down. When I lift up and through my spine, I need not to steal from my legs. That's tricky, right? So I'm going to lean over. I'm going to get my hand here to keep me down. I'm going to lift my leg and my mind, my spine, and my mind's going to want to follow my spine, right? But I'm going to have to keep the unsaid part of me down through the back leg, right? And it's the unsaid part of me. It's not that I'm pushing down through my back leg. I keep part of me down, the part to me that's wordless, as my mind follows the upward sensation. I'm going to get here and breathe. Inhale in, inhale out. Then I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to go over, I'm going to shift gravity. I could just throw my spine up. I'm going to try to throw my spine up and hit my leg down. So my mind gets the contrast it needs to know it's real. So I'm hitting down with my forearm, down with my back hand, lifting my spine up and breathing, marking it with my experience with my breath. Making sure it's not that I just hit down, I get to my legs too, to my feet as I'm activating my spine. All this is happening in Trikonasana, triangle pose. So now I'm going to go over to the first side, hit down, stay connected to the back hip, rise up, and take my arm up. Making sure I stay down here, making sure the unsaid part of me goes down through the back leg. I don't want it, right? And now, little simple, damn nothing simple instruction. As you stretch up, stretch through the pinky finger more. What happens when you stretch through the pinky finger more? Or that side of your hand? Good, and then release. So, pinky finger side. What happens when I go through the pinky finger side? When I stretch there, does anyone notice that the muscles of the upper arm go towards the bone? The tricep engages. But it's more than that. Something happens in the side of my back. And once it happens in the side of my back, something happens to my legs. Let's go the other way. So all these things are happening. My mind just doesn't know how to listen yet. So I need to practice. So I'm pushing down, opening up. I'm doing all these things, and I'm going to add the extra complexity. Right? And now following Bika Sangar's, I've been watching his damn videos again, trying to process, right? Stretch up to the pinky finger side. And there's the physical change that does. And then there's a pranic change, that being more conscious of stretching through the pinky finger side of the hand does. Physically, it activates something in my side back, closer to my core. That opens a doorway to my legs. What the hell, Chuck? What's happening here? Good, and then release. Coming back into center. Because my groin, I can feel it. I'm going to try to bring my legs together for a second because. Oh, good. I thought I was worried. Right? So I'm going to come back and bring my knees together and find Tadasana because we're way into the pose. Can you hear me still? Am I talking too soft? All right. So we're going to do it again here. Legs wide again. So then I'm talking to my yoga teacher last night, Joe, about these very instructions, because one of the things we share is trying to unpack seemingly simple lines from Bika Sangar, right, into what they actually are. So again, I'm going to lean forward and go back again a few times, right? And then she adds this other thing. So we're going over, we're hitting down, we're finding the earth, we're sprouting up through the spine. The arm goes up. The pinky finger side of the hand stretches more towards the sky. I realize the consequence of what that does energetically down through the base, even though I'm reaching up through the sky. All this is happening. And then I can feel the side of my back, and she said to me, and then release. She said to me, she's been studying the mudras, which are hand movements. And she said, the pinky connects to the element of water. Which in some framework. And she said, which means it activates the kidneys. So let's try it again. So what I got here, when I first started to stretch through my pinky, let me just talk before you do it. When I first started to stretch through my pinky finger, I started to feel the movement of my upper muscle towards the bone, this whole side of my chest, side of my back differently, right? I'm translating that into my legs, right? Right. And then what's wild to me about saying it's water is that it's fluid. I was only seeing it as grip. So here we go again, up, over, pinky side, getting to the kidneys. Kind of can see what they're saying. Can't claim it as knowledge though, right? And then I'm remembering that water moves and is fluid. So as I'm working hard here and gripping the shit out of stuff, I got to remember as I stretch the pinky finger that I'm moving water. What? Breathe. Good, and then release. What the hell's going on here? My mind says, right? And in fact, you know who I'm talking to, the one that wants to not believe any of this, or wants to believe it's the imagination, right? Pat, like, what if I don't know exactly what it is. Do I think my pinky finger and water are connected? I don't know. But when I let in a wider range of possibility, my experience changes. That's what the yogis are trying to pass down. All right? Because there's more here than you think. I have no idea. If you to tell me that somehow my pinky finger is connected to the element water, I'd say, what the hell's going on here? Right? So I'm over, I'm up. When I try to stretch through my pinky finger, at first I feel the activation of the muscles. I start to open to the whole side of my spine. I'm engaging, I'm hitting down through my legs, I'm lifting my spine. But then I'm going, but it's water, for God's sakes. It's not just will. It's more open than that. What the hell? Good, and then release. Bring your legs together. Has anyone, I don't know about you, but when I think about my will, which the Western culture thinks is so goddamn important, right? I feel like I'm squeezing when I use my will, that I'm actually collapsing space. So I can either, but in order to collapse the space, like if you can squeeze your hand together, whatever you do, like, so whatever you can do, like push on your legs or whatever it is, like when I use my will to do it harder and harder and harder, I start to collapse the space, right? But in order to do the action, I do have to collapse the space. But what if how I did that was informed by the sensation of water as I'm collapsing the space? So it's not that you're supposed to, oh, I should never actually collapse space. Wrong, wrong. It's how you do it. And if it's informed by a wider range of sensation. Because once I have to start thinking, I don't know about you, but when I'm putting my hands together and pressing them together, I can do the thing that I used to do before I was a yogi and just squeeze shit, right? And then if I have to go, wait, I'm putting the force together and I want there to be water. Does anyone start to move the skin differently? I totally do. I start to have to soften up as I'm pushing hard. All of a sudden, my chest starts to lift. All of a sudden, I go, oh, and then it's fluid. It's not just dry. Wait, it changes because I include sensations of elements. I think that's what the yogis are trying to pass on. All right. So, especially when you twist, right, you're going to want to squeeze stuff. Inhale, lift up, take your arm up. Exhale, grab, pull. Here, you're going to want to start squeezing. What if I not only keep air in my pose, space in my pose, I keep water in my pose, right? So as I'm squeezing, as I'm keeping open to counter back the squeeze with the space, I make it fluid. Somehow the water actually brings it back into my body again. So I'm not just being air, I'm not just squeezing with my will, I'm actually letting it be fluid. Inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve. And then come on back to center. So if you were faced with indescribable experience within you contain multitudes, and you're trying to find words to explain how full every sensation is and how many edges it has, like a good wine, I can see why you'd start using elements. Inhale, lift up. Space, air, will, earth, exhale, through, be a human being, start to assert, inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve, keep the air in the room, keep the space in your body, but now make it fluid. Use rhythm if you want to, or you can just let it go through you, right? Inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve. All of a sudden, if I try to have all of those threads, right? There's more here than I thought. Good. And then come on back together, back to center. You contain multitudes, but your mind would never get there on its own. What's happening in the body, there's so much going on that your mind needs all these types of descriptions, right? Lean forward on your elbows if you can under the table. If you can't, you don't have a table, do it use your forearms on your femur bones, on your thighs, right? In fact, I'll do it this way. I was going to do it up. So I was going to do it like this. Some of you can if you want to. I'm going to do it down on my hands down here, right? But I want you to get, I want you to get the connection to the ground here. I just took a big exhale because I need to reset. Right? I need to reset. I'm going to gauge. So if you're doing it this way, I want the triangle between my elbows and my palm and my heel of my hands. Right? Wow, I didn't even know how much harder I was working one arm than the other. want you to lift your chest. Find the structure in your experience. So right now in this position, it's the palms together, the elbows down, the sitting bones on the chair seat, and the feet on the floor. Make that the steeple of the church. Then start to use the breath to expand from the structure. And then the exhale to elongate. So on each exhalation, the inhale makes space. The exhale brings you into the midline. So maybe on exhale, your hands go together with a little bit more strength. Now, so you inhale, create space. You exhale back into the fall. And now you got to remember that it's also water. What does that even mean? What does it feel like to make it fluid? Good, and then release. So we tend to think about breathing in terms of air and expansion and deeper breaths. You take your work to whatever, I think it's really, really interesting and important to know that some of the wettest tissue in your body, most water is in your lungs. That, when you blow on a mirror and you check to see you're alive, condensation happens on the mirror, right? Because it's water, right? That there's so much more water in your breath than what you realize. You tend to focus on the air, right? Notice that in general, the places where air is happening or all around the spine, things tend to have water on them. In the mouth, in the nostrils, right? There's water here. So on these next few breaths, as you find however you're going to ground and find your own midline, right? Remember, you contain multitudes. And you notice your breath. And you notice the space. Space, if you're not careful, creates a sense of dryness. So you're trying to watch, you have your breath and the air. And the air not just be drawing, but to pay attention at the same time to the moisture in your mouth, the nostrils, in the lungs. Your blood has a lot of water in it. So you're watching the interplay of all the water you are with the air. The body guarantees the earth. So you're breathing. Fire. Maybe that's your desire to explore. Your body has fire. It will always go to live for as long as it can. the machinations of your body are aflame. But there's water, there's air, there's earth. All the while, you're still breathing. So much is here. Good. And then release. All that while, there's also movement. So just for a second, before we go all the way into Shavasana, go forward, go back, go happy, go expansive. Do all of it. Right? I'm going to go over, I was going to remember that I'm in all of this space. So I'm just inhaling, and then I'm going to switch and go down to the midline, grab my chair seat, go up with the other arm. But all this is reminding me that I don't have to just go into a singularity in Shavasana. Right? That it's like there's a whole bunch of sensations here. Right? Mm-hmm. I'm actually waggling my legs back and forth to remember that as I go into this nourishment, that's going to have less movement in it. I don't want to forget that movement's everywhere too. Because guess what? Your body's moving all the time. There's blood going through your body, there's air going through your lungs. You know, we're basically never not moving. Right? And then release and start to feel the symmetry, because we're trying to create the structure. Feeling my breath. I'm doing a little bit of rhythm here so I can remember. Right? And then get to where I can receive my chair better. Different elements here. There's earth, and there's like air, and there's water. And there's my ongoing fire. And then there's just nourishment. My mind doesn't have to be in charge. All the while, my breath continues without me, because my body guarantees my life for as long as it can. And close your eyes if you're ready. Feel your whole body where it is. Do it in parts. Maybe your ankles and your knees, your hips, your shoulders, your elbows, your wrists. Let the drop happen on an exhale. Let the hum come back in return. I know some of you are hurting as you get quiet like this. Me too. But the hum is below the hurt. The hum is below the judgment. Or soften the jaw on the inside of the mouth. Your mouth is a cave. Let go of your teeth, your gums. Feel your breath. Start to bring yourself back. Slightly deeper inhalation. Slightly longer exhalation. When you're ready, open your eyes. You want to close them again, close them. And then open them again. That has obviously been thinking about. In fact, I actually ordered The Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman after Laura referenced it in the huddle on Wednesday. And but I was thinking about we're large, and I can imagine someone saying who's thinking a lot. Yeah, but we're small because the world's large. It's like, yes, yep. And you contain multitudes. Well, not in comparison to blah, 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 how much there is outside my window right now. That's also correct, right? But there's as much infinity between 0 and 1 as there is between 0 and infinity. Right? That there is no comparison. So one of the things I loved about what Laura said in the huddle on Wednesday was that she started with that line from Walt Whitman, that you're large and you contain multitudes. And then she said, just kind of in this small way, she goes, yeah, I tend to forget that I have feet. And then she connected that to the multitudes, right? And it turns out that allowing in vastness doesn't have to be scary. So one of the lines from Biggest Anger that I forgot to mention that got me thinking about this is that, besides what Laura's poem was, it's interesting how things coincide. That an overactive mind creates black holes in the body. That was his line, right? And that you forget you have multitudes because your mind's overactive. You forget you're large because your mind gets overactive, because it starts to try to compare everything. I like that. And I like the attempts by the yogis to try to use elements like my pinky finger and water. What the hell? Really? Is that how it is? Well, that's one of the ways how it is can be described. Yeah. Right. And I admire people trying desperately to communicate to us, trying to give a framework for you to realize what's already manifest, which is you contain multitudes. You don't have to do anything. It's already vast. Vastness becomes heaviness for an overactive mind. It becomes hope for a quiet one. All right, everybody. Namaste. Spirit in me bows the spirit in you. Have a good day. We started out with